Welcome to another episode of Rollin' Solo with Gameface Killer. I am here rolling it solo once again. Still a little, I'm still a little shell shocked and reeling from last week. Right before the stream, I found out that they were canceling the Lord of the Rings card game. Not effectively canceling it, but it was kind of at the end of any production. They closed down the studio that created it. It was a big shock, and so I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to focus on next. I do definitely want to finish what they do have of the game, at least the main quests. I pretty much played, I'd say probably half of it. Hey Joe, so I'm really excited about checking out the rest of it. Some point in the future, might do that in kind of a different format. Um, and I definitely want to get back to playing some Gloomhaven and checking out that preview for you. However, one thing that I do want to do with Gloomhaven is play through with 3 players to beat one more boss, so that I can jump back in and show all of you everything that you can do with the game, including having four characters is the ideal way of playing it because I think you get the most complexity, the most combos, really cool ideas. And then there's so much that they've added. It would be great to kind of take a look at it from the beginning. But I've got to unlock the ability to have 4 characters. So I've got to beat one more boss, and I think I'm going to do that out of the stream, just to kind of do it as quickly as possible. And then that way, because one of the things I also noticed was that my saved game was not importing the new elements. So there were no perks, there were no new cards, there was no well, obviously, I only had those 2 characters, but the Mind Thief. In order to add that, I'd need to start a whole new game all over again. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to do that on my own. I'll try to get that done as quickly as possible. But until then, we're going to check out some cool board game adaptations that I've been piling up, wanting to kind of show on the stream. And then part of the reason why I wanted to play some of these adaptations was as a new player, just like some of you might be, so that I can check out the tutorial, check out how it teaches you how to play, and see if it does a good job. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. This is one of the most beloved, popular board games. If you go to Board Game Geek, I think it was #1 for a long time. And I have never played it. It's a 2-player game. I suppose you could play teams, but I think it's mostly just a 2-player game. It's from a company that I really like. They make a lot of historical games, confrontations, and political games. And this one is probably one of the most famous political games that they've made for sure. And it's Twilight Struggle, which is sort of replaying the Cold War, the 1950s and 60s on through the 80s. I imagine it goes on through the 80s. And I know it's somewhat of a card game. I don't think there are any dice involved, but we'll see what we get as far as ideas and tutorials. And I know the Tainted Grail was probably not the most exciting. It was kind of a demo. It's kind of bare bones. There is a little bit of a story to it, but other than the combat, which is what I really wanted to showcase, there wasn't really a whole lot else to it as far as a demo. I did read, however, that if you are interested in the Tainted Grail game, that it is not anything like the board game. So if you're planning on or already have purchased the board game, you won't spoil anything by playing the video game or vice versa. They're kind of trying to make each one a little unique. At least they're set in the same world and they have some similarities, but one thing in particular, the combat has a lot more to it in the digital version. In terms of lots of variables going around, lots of additional numbers, cumulative things that they couldn't do with a card. It's a little bit simpler, I think, with a card game. But I'm pretty excited about playing it still, and I should be getting my hands on the physical game itself. I think in August, I think is when they said they would be shipping it out. So without further ado, another Asmodee game, which still a little sore. Playdeck is a company that makes a lot of board game adaptations, and they do a really good job with all of their adaptations for sure. Just turning down the volume a little bit here. But they do some really great adaptations. Looks like I got a little bit of a cutoff at the bottom here. Hopefully that won't affect the normal game. So that if you go to the you can play online against other players, which is really cool. If you have someone that you like to play competitive board games with, it might be a cool idea to get this. If you have someone that you're long distance with and get to play it with them. I'm going to play offline because that's where the tutorial is. You can create a random game to play against the computer, but I'm going to play against the tutorial to learn because I don't know anything about this game. I know it's about the Cold War. That's about it. And the term Twilight Struggle comes from JFK. That's all I know. All right. So this is a game about Cold War. It's played over 10 turns. Okay. To win, you'll need to get to 20 victory points or end up with more points than your opponent once the last turn is over. Okay, so I can end the game early if I get 20 victory points, or I can wait until the 10th turn and have more victory points. I'm going to be playing the United States, which is good. My opponent will play as the USSR. At the start of each turn, every player will be dealt a hand of cards. For the first turn, you get 8 cards. Alright, must be a certain... Seems like my opponent also has 8 cards, so I guess that's even. Each card has an operations point value in the top left in the star that represents the card's strength. The text on the card describes the effect that occurs when the card is played. Okay, so it has operations value of 4 strength. This is an early war Marshall Plan. Allows the play of NATO. Add 1 U.S. influence in each of 7 non-USSR controlled Western European countries. Okay. Some cards have an event for the U.S. only. So I'm assuming that when you have the star, it's U.S. only, or if it's in blue. Some cards have an event for the USSR only. Okay, so red star versus blue star. Some cards have a neutral event that can be used by either player. Okay. Early war, turn 1. Okay, so I guess it's possible that every round there's less or more cards that you get in your hand, and then there's actions, a certain number of actions you can take. Headline phase. Both players will select an event card to headline. The first phase of every turn is called the headline phase. Each player will secretly choose 1 card to play. A good choice here is the Marshall Plan. Play the Marshall Plan as your headline. To play it, click and drag the card from your hand, drop it onto the headline card banner that appears in the center of the screen after you start to drag. Okay. So I'm playing the Marshall Plan. The opponent's playing ComCon. I can read that very quickly. Council for Mutual Economic Assistance. Okay. The USSR has chosen ComCon for their first ComCon? Who knows? For their first headline event. Since the operations point value of the Marshall Plan is 4, and it's higher than ComCon, your event will be played first. Okay. Makes sense. So you want to play the higher operations value. Marshall Plan allows you to place 7 influence onto the board. You may place this influence into any country in Western Europe that the USSR doesn't control, but each country may only gain 1 influence. Okay. 1 in 7. Europe is divided into 2 subregions. Countries in Western Europe are shaded dark purple. Okay. Eastern Europe is shaded in light purple. Oh, okay, I see the difference. I was like, they're both purple. Austria and Finland are considered to be both in Western and Eastern Europe, so they're shaded both colors. Austria and Finland. Okay, that makes sense. Place 1 influence in Turkey by clicking the highlighted country. Okay, so it looks like I already had 1 influence there and it went to 2. Notice that the influence in Turkey changed to a blue background. So it used to be white, now it's blue. This indicates that you now control this country. This is because there's enough US influence in the country to match the stability number for Turkey. Okay, so the stability number is in the upper right corner of every country. And once I reach that, then I've taken control. Every country has a stability number if the amount of influence you have in the country exceeds your opponent's influence by at least the stability number you control the country. So I have to be greater than 2 in Turkey than Russia. I have to be 2 more than the USSR, and since they have 0, I get it at 2. Makes sense? So examples, that's nice. Some examples. Peru, no control because there's 2 stability there. No control because US needs 1 more. US controls because it exceeds by 2, and if there's nothing, then you just have to reach the stability number. Makes sense? Place 1 influence in Greece by clicking on the highlighted country. By the way, just as a little brief break, news, I believe the new character has been released on Slay the Spire. If you remember, I was kind of playing that for a while in solo gaming, but there's a brand new character you can play for free if you own Slay the Spire, and that might be something I'll have to check out at some point. Place 1 influence in Greece by clicking on the highlighted country. Okay, so I got that control of that country. I believe I have 5 more to spend. Place 1 influence on Italy. So I guess just to kind of solidify things there. 1 influence in Western Germany. 1 influence in France. 1 influence in Benelux. 1 influence in Spain, Portugal. Now the effect of the Marshall Plan is complete. Anytime a card is played for the event or for operations points, it is put into the discard pile. Okay. However, Marshall Plan has an asterisk next to it. This means that if the event is played, it is removed from the game instead. So that's what the asterisk means. It's going to be removed for good. Whenever the draw pile is out of cards, the discard pile will be reshuffled to form a new draw pile. If a card is removed from the game, it won't be included in this reshuffle. Okay. So it looks like we got that card removed. Okay, I guess they put all the removed cards up here in the upper left. After the Marshall Plan is removed from play, your opponent will play ComCon. Okay. ComCon allows placement of influence into Eastern Europe, so your opponent has added 1 influence to Austria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Romania. Okay. But they haven't... It's interesting, they're spreading their influence out, but haven't really taken over enough to control. And it looks like in Eastern Europe, the numbers are higher to control a little bit. Although I guess there's some places in the West that are also a little higher. ComCon also has an asterisk to it from the event title, so it will be removed from play after the event is finished. After both players have played their headline card, the headline phase is over. The next phase is the action rounds. Players will alternate playing 1 card each for 6 action rounds. The USSR always takes the first action round. Okay. For the first action round, your opponent chooses to play Indo-Pakistani War. Playing a card during an action round requires the player to choose either to play the card for its event or operations points. Okay, so they could do the event or the operations point. Oh, so there are dice in this game. So I'm not sure if he's going to do the event or the operations points. I don't know what the operations points go to. In this case, the USSR wants to improve its influence on the map, so they choose to play the card for operations points and use the op points to place influence. When playing a card for ops points, if it contains your event or a neutral event, the event text is not played. Okay, so if you play for ops points, if it contains your event or a neutral event, Okay, then the event text is not played. When using operation points to place influence, you may only add influence in or adjacent to countries where you already have influence. Okay. In or adjacent to countries where you already have influence. Okay. The USSR wishes to add influence in Italy. This is allowed because they already have influence in Austria, Yugoslavia, which are both adjacent. Okay, makes sense. Normally adding one influence into a country costs one operation point. However, if your opponent already controls a country, it costs 2 operation points to place an influence. Okay. Since you control Italy, the USSR uses the 2 ops points from Indo-Pakistani War, places 1 influence into Italy, and the action round is completed. Alright, so it gets placed in the discard pile. Now the US gets their first action round. You have some good cards, but 3 of them have events associated with your opponent. When you play these cards for operations points during an action round, you also have to allow your opponent to play the associated event. Oof. Managing the situation when you have your opponent's cards in hand is a big part of Twilight Struggle. So the idea is, when to play them in a way that won't let the opponent get an advantage. There are currently several areas of concern on the map. One possibility is to strengthen your position in the Middle East. When you play a card for operations points, you may use those points to attempt a coup. Let's try that now. When you attempt a coup, you spend all of the operations points on one card to target a country where your opponent has influence. The lower the stability number of the country, the more likely that the coup attempt will succeed. Okay, so the lower stability allows coup, which I'm assuming is going to degrade their influence. When you play your opponent's event, you get to decide if the event is played before or after you use the operations points. In this case, we'll play Fidel, and we'll choose to use the ops points first. Okay, so we'll put Fidel. Drag here for a chance at performing a coup in a country of your choice. Opponent event will resolve after your action. The challenge of the 20th century is the challenge of human relations. Now we have to choose the target country for the coup attempt. Syria is a good choice since it has a low stability number. Select Syria by clicking on the highlighted country. Before you attempt a coup, you will be shown a summary of the possible outcomes of the coup attempt. Okay, so if I roll a 6 or a 5, I gain 3 or 2 influence. If I roll lower, it looks like things stay the same. If I roll a 4, I just gain influence. It's like a 50-50 chance. The coup strength is determined by rolling a 6-sided die and adding the card's operations points. Okay, so the operations point is 2. So I'm definitely going to get at least a 3 or higher. I have a really good chance of having something happen in my favor. The coup defense is double the stability number. Since Syria has a stability number of 2, the coup defense is 4. Okay, so twice the stability number. If the coup strength is greater than the coup defense, the coup attempt is successful and your opponent must remove influence equal to the difference between those values. If the difference is greater than your opponent's influence, the remainder will be added to your influence. Okay. So it needs to be higher than a 4. And then it also has to have a difference between the coup defense and the coup. Okay, so I've actually got to get higher to remove. Click to roll the die button, coup attempt. You rolled a 4 and add 2 op points from Fidel. Okay, so that's right, I get to add that to my dice. for a total strength of 6. You have succeeded in your coup attempt since 6 is greater than the coup defense of 4. You succeeded by a margin of 2, but your opponent only has 1 influence in Syria. The remaining difference is instead used to add your influence to the country. So Syria goes down to 0 USSR influence and increases 1 US influence. Each turn, to avoid a victory point penalty, both players must conduct military operations. Coups add to your military operations for the turn. Okay, so you have to do some kind of military operation. They add coups do add to military operations. Yeah, they still do, Joe. Apparently they're releasing a new character. At least right now, you can play a new character. So lots of new stuff getting added. Coups add to your military operations for the turn. You gain the number of operations points used for the coup attempt, so you now have 2 military operations points. Okay. At the end of the turn, if you have fewer military operations than the DEFCON status, you'll lose the difference in victory points. Okay, so the DEFCON status is at 5. So I've got to do at least 3 more military operations, yeah. Or lower the DEFCON status before the turn is over. I don't think that sounds good. So now the opponent gets to play, my opponent gets to play the Fidel event, remove all U.S. influence in Cuba, which there is none. USSR gains sufficient influence in Cuba for control. Oof. So it's going to gain 3. 3 influence has been added to Cuba by the event, and the USSR now controls a country in Central America. You used Fidel for the operations points, but your opponent played the event. Since Fidel has an asterisk next to the event title, it will be removed from the game. Guess he can only take that country over 1 time. Alright. The USSR gets to play their second action round in the turn. Your opponent chooses to play independent Reds for 2 operations points, placing 1 influence in Iran and another in France. Okay. Independent Reds is an event associated with the United States. So I get to do the event. Add sufficient U.S. influence in either Yugoslavia, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, or Czechoslovakia equal USSR influence. Okay. I can match the USSR influence in any of 5 different countries, but each of those countries currently only has 1 influence. So I'm going to select Yugoslavia. Okay. So now it's my action. Most of the scoring in Twilight Struggle comes from scoring cards. You currently have 1 in your hand, which is Europe scoring. Scoring cards must be played during the same turn that you draw them. Okay, so you cannot hold them. So this must kind of focus your objective on, for example, Europe, so that while you have it in hand, you know you've got to do actions in Europe. It's kind of cool. It kind of makes you spread out influence in different places. If the scoring card is still in your hand after all action rounds have been played in a turn, you will immediately lose the game. Wow. So I've got to play this card. And I'm assuming I do this as one of my actions. When played, Europe scoring gives points to each side based on their strength in the region shown on the card. Okay. Battleground versus non-battleground. Strength in a region is primarily driven by battleground countries. If it's battleground, it's in red, non-battleground, green. Okay. Battleground countries have a red background. They have a darker region color background. Oh, okay. So it's a different color, but it's just darker. Red is battleground. First, the scoring card shows victory points earned for controlling more countries in the region than your opponent. Okay. To qualify for presence, you need to control at least one country in the region. Okay, so I do have that for Europe. Countries the U.S. controls in Europe, 5. So I would qualify for presence and gain 3 victory points. Okay, so I can gain more than one of the headings. The USSR controls 2 countries in Europe, East Germany and Poland, so they would also qualify for presence and gain 3 victory points. Okay, so we would both get victory points. Makes sense. To qualify for domination, you need to control more total countries and more battleground countries in the region than your opponent does. In addition, you must control at least one non-battleground country. Okay, so basically I have to have more battleground countries and one non-battleground countries. Makes sense. I currently control more countries in Europe total, but we each have 2 battlegrounds, so neither one of us is going to get domination. To qualify for control of a region, you need to control more total countries and control all of the battleground countries in the region. Wow. So you can automatically win the game. That's crazy. For most regions, control will grant a large number of points. However, Europe is special. If you control Europe when the scoring card is played, you'll immediately win the game. Wow. Each player is also granted 1 victory point for each battleground country they control. Currently, you have 2 battlegrounds, so you'd get 2 VP along with a 3 VP for presence. Okay. Finally, some regions have countries that are adjacent to the superpower countries. Each country that you control adjacent to an enemy superpower is worth 1 additional victory point. Oh, okay, so that's why Cuba is pointing right at the United States, because he'll get points for that. In Europe, Finland, Poland, and Romania are adjacent to the USSR, but I don't control any of those. Oh yeah, so there's only 3 in Europe. Canada is the only country in Europe adjacent to the US, and the USSR does not control it, so no victory points will be awarded. Oh, that's right, this is Europe. So only Europe would be scored, and since Cuba's in Central America, it would not be scored. Adding up your score for the current state of Europe would grant you 5 VP. Makes sense. 3 for presence, 2 for battleground countries. The USSR will also gain 5 VP for presence and 2 battleground countries. The final result of playing Europe scoring during this action round would be even, and the victory point track would remain at 0. Okay, so I guess if neither one of you would earn more points than the other. Oh, that's true, because you got to have 10 victory points to win. I think it was 10. Or, I guess it's 10 rounds. Maybe it's 20 victory points to win. Hey, Heroic! Yeah, I'm playing Twilight Struggle. This is the first time I've ever played this game. It's pretty complicated, but it's interesting. I can start to see why it's a popular game. Since you have to play Europe scoring this turn, you want to gain as many points as possible for it and domination of the region. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. If you know you have a scoring card in your hand, you probably want to save it until you can maximize your points for that turn. Domination of the region is the best way to go. Yeah. France is the last remaining uncontrolled battleground, so it is the key to domination. Yeah, I definitely want to try to get France. You could attempt a coup since your opponent has influence, but the high stability number means that's a risky play. The safest route is to use one of your cards with high operations points to place enough influence in France to control it. Makes sense. So probably the US-Japan Mutual Defense Pact. Yeah, that's what they want me to play. So I'm going to place influence. And the nice thing is it's not going to give my enemy an event. So I'm going to place 3 influence in France. Oh, I like how it's got a little meter showing control. I now control France, and I qualify for domination in Europe. However, the USSR will also have an action round to respond before I'll have a chance to play Europe scoring. So the bad thing would be if your opponent is good and knows the cards, they might know that if you have domination, or went for domination that round in a country, you're probably angling to play European scoring. I still have one operations point left from the pact, so I'm going to use it in a different region. I'm going to play it on Lebanon, Middle East. Okay, so back to the USSR's turn. Coup. Vietnam revolt, sorry. Okay, what just happened? For the third action round, okay, so they're trying to attempt a coup in France. Wow, that seems like it'll be hard. They've got to get a 6, and they're only going to be able to add a 2, so they got to roll at least a 4. Oh, and the DEFCON status will degrade to 4. And a failure. Okay. The die roll was a 1. Oh, okay, it automatically has already been resulted. So adding the 2 ops points get the coup strength to 3. This is less than the coup defense of 6. Double the stability number of 3, so the coup attempt has failed. Any coup attempt in a battleground country will automatically lower the DEFCON status by 1. Okay, so that's what lowered it. Anytime you're attempting a coup in a battleground country, keep a close eye on the DEFCON status. If it reaches 1 during your action round, you automatically lose the game. You've started nuclear war. Whew. As DEFCON status gets lower, more of the map becomes off limits to coup and realignment attempts. Interesting. Now that we're in DEFCON 4, Europe is restricted. You can click on the DEFCON track at the top screen to see the effects of each DEFCON status. Okay. Well, I guess I can't do that right now. Your opponent's coup attempt also granted 2 military operations points at the end of the turn. Each player loses 1 victory point for every military operation they are short of the DEFCON status. If the turn ended right now, both players would lose 2 victory points, since you each have 2 mil-ops points, and the DEFCON status is at 4. You need to gain some more mil-ops points, or else further lower the DEFCON status. Oof. Seems like I should want more to get more military operations, although DEFCON, I can see that both of those have their downsides. Your opponent used Vietnam revolts for the operation points. Even though it has an asterisk next to the event title, it will be placed in the discard pile since the event was not played. Makes sense. Okay, DEFCON is at 4. It is now your third action round. The Soviet coup in France has failed to break your domination of the region, so you can play European scoring for a big points reward. That's what we're talking about. Click and drag European scoring. Okay, so I have dominance, and I have 3 non-battleground countries. I have 3 battleground countries, which gets me victory points. I do have to have 1 non-battleground country so I can get domination. And I do have to have more battleground than the enemy, which I do. So I get 10 points, and USSR gets 5. All right. You will gain 10. All right. And then you have to confirm it in order for it to happen. I know, Logic, it's weird that I've never played this game either, considering that it's so popular in terms of if you play board games and you love strategy and tactics, you got to play this game. Yeah, but it's very popular with board gamers. It was on the number 1 for a long time on Board Game Geek, and then I think it finally got ousted by Pandemic Legacy, I think, and then after that, Gloomhaven, of course, but which I have played both of those games. But all right, the next net difference of 5 VP has moved the victory point in your favor. I need just 15 more victory points to win the game. Okay, so there's not a lot of victory points, but that was a pretty good leap, considering I only need 20 total. Okay, for the fourth action round, your opponent has played Warsaw Pact formed. For the event, placing 2 influence in Yugoslavia, 2 in Czechoslovakia, 1 influence in East Germany to solidify its hold on Eastern Europe. Yeah. So there's 3 rounds remaining. The third way in which you can use operations points is to attempt realignment. Okay. For each ops points you spend, you can make 1 roll to remove influence in a country, provided that country isn't restricted by the DEFCON status. Perhaps the new leader of Cuba might be amenable to some persuasion. Okay, this is where I wanted to kind of see. Okay, no coup or realignment attempts in Europe, Asia, Middle East. Okay. Interesting. Click and drag Olympic Games from your hand. Uh-oh. Did I? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to realignment. Drag a card here for a chance of performing a realignment in a country of your choice. Since this card has 2 operation points, you get to make 2 realignment attempts. Select Cuba for your first attempt by clicking the highlighted country. For a realignment attempt, each player rolls 1 6-sided die. Whichever side rolls higher can remove the difference in influence from the country. Realignments can never add influence to a country. Okay, so I'm just working to lower his influence. The USSR gets a +1 bonus to its roll because it currently has more influence in Cuba. Each player will also get a +1 bonus for each country adjacent to that country. Okay, so that's why I get a +1, he gets a +1. Click the roll die button to initiate. So it looks like I've got basically no change as a 58.3%. Alright. So I got a 4, you got a 3, so it loses 1 influence. Yeah, or I won by 1 influence. Okay, so 1 was removed. So they no longer control, which is why they changed to white background. But their presence is still there. I still have 1 more realignment attempt. I'm going to use the second roll against Cuba to remove them completely. Ooh. So that time I rolled a 5, which was a 6. The opponent rolled a 2 with +1, which is a 3. So I removed 2 influence. I could have removed 3. Alright, it's all gone from Cuba. Realignment attempts are less dramatic than coups, but they can be just as important. Right, so they're not military actions. They're sort of another way you can remove influence, but it's definitely is it less of a chance? I'm trying to remember if I rolled the die for a coup. I think I did. The China card. The USSRs play the China card to place influence in their 5th action round. The China card's unique card. When played, instead of going to the discard pile, it goes to your opponent. The USSR starts the game with it and now has chosen to play it. +1 VP for the player holding this card at the end of the turn 10. So you play it for a really huge boost in influence, but you have to give it to the other player and they get victory points at the end. Ooh, and you get more operations points if it's used in Asia. This means you now possess the China card, but it is face down and unavailable. At the end of the turn, it'll flip face up, and I will be able to play it next turn. Okay. Two more rounds. Yeah, Sentinels is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. Soviet plans in the Middle East continue. You hold Arab-Israeli War, a powerful event that could put the U.S. position in the Middle East at risk. Luckily, there's a way to avoid that event. Oh, okay, so basically I don't want to play this card is what they're saying, even though it's in my hand, because it'll give USSR a powerful event. The fourth and final way in which you may spend operation points is a space race attempt. Oh, this is cool. I love the space race. If you spend a card's ops points on the space race, the event is not played. Oh, okay, so I can discard it and keep it out of play. You may only make one space race attempt each turn. Your current position on the space race track will determine which cards you may use for a space race attempt. To advance to the next box on the space race track, you need to play a card worth 2 or more ops points and then roll between a 1 and 3 on a 6-sided die. Okay. So I'm going to play the space race. So I have to play, yeah, for the first space, I can get an Earth satellite by rolling a 1 through 3 and then playing a 2 ops card. Okay, here's all the possible outcomes. May play 2 space race cards per turn. That's kind of cool. You must roll between 1 and 3. Click the roll button. Oh, so you get advantages. The opponent has to choose and show their headline card first in the first round. May discard 1 held card. That's cool. You rolled a 2, so your space race attempt is successful. You advance 1 box on the space race track and gain the rewards listed on the track. In this case, you gain 2 victory points. Nice. Oh, and I'm assuming that means 2. There's a little 2/1. That probably means the first person gets 2. The second person gets 1. So you get there first and you get more points. The other thing that I really like is the idea that you're going to get, wow, you can take 8 action rounds. So I can see the point of wanting to get rid of cards because you can only get rid of 1 with a space race. And if you get far enough, you can get rid of others. Otherwise, you end up having to play, I think, every card except for 1, which is kind of grueling considering you may have a couple of really powerful cards that give the other guy events. The launch of the first man-made satellite into orbit is a success, and there is no war in the Middle East for now. And I'm up to 7 victory points. $60 for Marvel Champions. That does seem... That can't be how much it costs. I don't think I paid that much for it. I'm looking up right now on Amazon. Which is I don't always buy at Amazon, but sometimes they have cheaper. Yeah, it's $60 online too, but sometimes they have more expensive. The games are more expensive online than they are in the board game stores, but I don't. Oh, did you pay that, Joe? That is very expensive for a base set card game. Although I will point out that you do get a lot more than normal base game sets. It seems like, whereas with the other core sets of card games that they release, you kind of have to buy 2 core sets. It's kind of hidden in the cost. So I guess it all adds up to the same anyway. Instead of giving you a half a core set, they give you a full core set, and you pay twice as much. Okay, it looks like USSR is attempting a coup. Oof, and they were successful in Iran, so they completely eliminated me and increased their influence to 5. They're really running the Middle East. And DEFCON status goes down to 3. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's a battleground country. It's a good thing we don't have to worry about these kind of things happening nowadays, right, everyone? Iran leading to nuclear war. Containment is a strong U.S. event, but it is best When played early in the turn, all further operations played by the U.S. this turn add 1 to their value. That's cool. The Soviets have greatly minimized this card by holding it until their final action round. Ah, that's smart. That was good to save that. It is removed from the game because its event was played, but you will only benefit for the one action round. Okay. This is your last action round. Okay, so I guess I have no. I do play all of my cards, but one, and then the China card was something that I got from the Russia player playing. So this is kind of crazy. This is your last action round before the end of the turn. You have 1 ops point cards remaining in your hand. Playing one of them, this action round will be worth 2 because of the containment card that he played last round. Captured Nazi Scientist is a neutral event that will advance you 1 space on the space track. Wow. Romanian Abdication is a USSR event. It'll give your opponent control of Romania if I play it for operations points. It seems like Space Race is better. Romanian Abdication is an asterisk, so it will be removed from the game if the event is played. Sometimes it's better to accept the outcome of the event just so your opponent has fewer cards in the draw pile. Oh, that's true. If I play a card and give him an event, but it has an asterisk, I'm decreasing the good things that could happen to them later on. That's an interesting logic. Let's play Romanian Abdication, but this time you'll see an example of how to allow your opponent to play the event first, then you can decide how to use the operation points after. Click and drag Romanian Abdication, drop it to trigger the event banner that appears after you start to drag. Trigger the opponent's event, and then I'll conduct operations afterwards. Okay. The USSR has gained control of Romania. Now you may use the ops points for Romanian Abdication. Click and drag Romanian Abdication again. Drop it to place influence banner. Thailand is a battleground country in Southeast Asia. It's usually a key country in the fight for Asia. You aren't allowed to place influence there now because you don't have any influence in an adjacent country. Oh, so let's do something about that. Place 1 influence in Malaysia by clicking on that highlighted country. You now have influence adjacent to Thailand, but you still aren't allowed to place influence there because you weren't adjacent at the start of this action. Okay, so I'll spread out into Southeast Asia by placing 1 in Indonesia. Now it's over. DEFCON level 3, current military ops. Okay, so I lost 1 victory point because I only played military operations. I only played 2 was my level, and DEFCON was 3. He didn't lose any, I lost 1. But it's still in my favor. Military operations is checked against DEFCON status. Yeah.
The seeds of totalitarian regimes are nurtured by misery and want.
Yeah. I own at least 2 of those Arkham sets too. Logic. And that game, just like Joe said, that game. That's terrifying. Although I think I just need to kind of get into the spirit of like being happy with going insane and maybe just barely scraping out by the end. Fantasy Flight seems to. I noticed this with their cooperative games. Especially the campaign ones, they seem to like the scenarios where they kick their ass, they kick your ass, they kick your ass, and then you kind of pull it out in the end. I think that's what's kind of been happening to us in our table flipping playthrough of the Lord of the Rings and Journeys in Middle Earth. We had a lot of losses, or quite a few right in the middle, and then kind of been turning it around a little bit. All right, so we're at turn 2, 8 cards in hand, 6 action rounds. Okay, so DEFCON looks like it went up by 1. Yeah, okay, so DEFCON improves by 1 every turn. Each player draws enough cards to have 8 cards. I had 1 card held from the last time, so I drew 7 cards. Okay, so I didn't get an extra card. That's just one of the cards I get. Oh, I held over a card from last turn. That's why I have 7 plus that plus. Yeah, so I have 9. 7 plus the one I held from last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that's why. I drew till I get 8, and then I flip the China card and I get to play it. You have 9 cards available to you this turn. You will choose one of them for your headline event, and you'll need 6 of them for your action rounds. You should have 2 cards left at the end of the turn, although some events can add or remove cards from your hand. Okay. There are only 6 cards left in the draw pile, so the discard pile... Where's the draw pile, I wonder? I don't know. 6 cards left in the draw pile, so the discard pile will be reshuffled after those cards are drawn during the start of turn 3. Europe scoring was played last turn, so you know that Asia scoring and Middle East scoring will both appear either this turn or next. Oh, okay, so you can kind of count the cards a little bit. At least you know who might have what. I got Middle East scoring here, so he could possibly have Asia scoring. Yeah, or he get it, or one of us will get it next time. You may play on from this position. Try to see what you can do to address the... Oh, so this is the overview tutorial. To address the expanding Soviet presence in the Middle East, or spread your influence in Asia. The world is your stage, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Good luck, Mr. or Madam President. Well, that wasn't really much of a tutorial. That was over really quickly. Yeah. So it looks like there's a lot of battleground countries in Middle East. So to have presence, I'm assuming I need... Advanced Player Space Race Marker, 1 box. So one of the issues is all I have is control over it. Well, I guess I have Syria. So I have to control more battleground states. So I would have to knock his card out. I'd have to knock him out of one of the battleground states. Huh. I mean, I could do a coup in Iraq with NATO. Oh, I've got to select a headline card. Add 1 USSR influence in each of any 4... Oh, so obviously I only want to play my cards, right? USSR player may no longer make coup or realignment rolls in any US-controlled European countries. US-controlled countries in Europe may not be attacked by any of the play of any brush war event. Whew. So the problem is I have no... I don't really have any headline cards. Ooh, all further operation cards played by your opponent this turn. Okay, so this is what they mean by neutral. I could play this or he could play this. So I do have 1 neutral. Or I could do the China card. +1 operations value when all points are used in Asia. Okay. I don't think I'm going to play that quite yet, but I think I like the idea of playing Red Scare. All further operations cards played by your opponent this turn. So everything he plays is going to have a really low operations value. Seems like that's an early turn play for sure. Oh, he's playing Asia scoring. So he got 4, I got 3. So it ended up with a net of me losing 1. Okay. All right, Joe. See you later. I'm probably not going to be on too much longer on myself either. Just kind of wanting to check out the tutorial and preview it. I mean, I have a pretty good idea how to play. I definitely think if I brought out the board game to play with someone or to teach someone else how to play, I'd still need to read the rules. One of the things I love about good tutorials is that it can also teach you how to play the physical board game, but I think the way that I think the video tutorials tend to be better in terms of um, kind of walking you through, telling you what to do. Ooh, so he's increasing Middle East. I still have a scorecard in my hand, so I gotta play it. So let's say I do NATO, we'll do something crazy. Okay, so here's where all the crazy stuff is going on. That's why you only had one banner, but you can actually do a lot of different things. I can play the event. Okay, so I'm going to try to do a coup in Iraq. So if I roll a 1, it stays the way it is. If I roll a 2... Okay, so this is including... So I would have to roll a 6. So I have to roll a 2 to have any chance of winning. Otherwise... Or higher than a 2. If I roll a 3, then 2... Then what is removed? It goes down to 2. Okay, so this makes sense. So basically what the die roll means is whatever I get, that's what's going to happen. The highest I can achieve is gaining 1 influence, but the best, 50-50 chance of really seriously reducing it. All right, so no influence now. That's better. Oops, that's better than... Okay, lower the DEFCON status. So the nice thing is, I'm assuming it's USSR's play, but it might be thinking. So at this point, he's only got 1 battleground state. We're even when it comes to our Israel. And I've got to have 1 non-battleground Middle East. Oh, remove influence in 3 countries. Okay, so he played this as an event. What was the action that he did? Oh, he must be doing the... I guess I'm trying to figure out what was the action that he did. Oh, Eastern European unrest. Oh, so this is me playing the event. Sorry. Remove 1 USSR influence from countries in Eastern Europe. From 3 countries, because this is early war. Okay, so I get to remove 3 influence. I probably want to take it off of one of the battleground states. That way I have even more of a chance of controlling. Oh, but it's got to be 3 different ones. Definitely East Germany. And then probably... start to take out his control of non-battleground states, maybe. So I'm trying to figure out how I can commit my decision. Ah. So he's doing a coup in Panama. It was successful, so he gained... Oof, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 2.
Our efforts are made in the belief that men and nations can cooperate, and that there are no international problems which men of goodwill cannot solve or adjust.
To non-US controlled countries. Okay, so I can resolve the event first, place influence, realignment roles, coup attempt, space race. Those are kind of my options. Suez Crisis, remove a total of 4 US influence from France, the United Kingdom, and Israel. Ooh, but I don't want to do that because I want to try to take control of Israel and maybe Egypt in one battleground state. Well, yeah, we'll see how this goes. Or I could do the China card. Let's do it. Yeah, because I'm not really worried about him having 1 extra victory point at the end of turn 10. I'm hoping to maybe win before then. So I'm going to place influence first. So I can place 4 total. I can take over Egypt. Do 3 more and take over Israel. Then I just need... Oh, I've got to do 1 more. That's right. Okay. Dang, I have control. So we're even on battleground states. I got to take over 1 more battleground state plus a non... Okay, opponent event. Remove 1 influence in 1 country. In Europe, I'm assuming. I'm hoping he doesn't do anything else in Middle East for right now, but we'll see. He's placing an influence, but he only has 1. He's kind of like taken over South America and Central America. Okay. So what does de-Stalinization do? USSR may relocate up to 4 influence points to non-US controlled countries. I think... I'll place influence first. So I'm going to take over Egypt. And then... Oh dear. I've got to go to Iraq. Oh, I guess I've got 1 more influence in Syria. So I've got more battleground countries than he does, and I've got... Oh yeah, I've got 2 Middle East countries, so I didn't even need to... I can score now, as long as he doesn't do anything to change. he shouldn't even have presence because he only has... Yeah. I'm kind of just working on the Middle East only. I'm not even looking at other parts of the board, which is probably bad because somebody has Asia, somebody's got South America. How did that... Is that a card he played? Yeah, I think so. Space Race. Okay, so he was successful. So he's got satellite now. That decreased my victory margin. Okay, so I think I can do this. I do have domination. He gets 3 for presence. I don't have presence. Because I gotta have... How do I not have presence? Huh, this is odd. Because I know I've got 2 countries. Maybe I have to have 3? I mean, at this point, I'm only going to get 3 more victory points. I'm trying to figure out what the scoring cards presence mean. I wish I could remember.
The challenge of the 20th century is the challenge of human relations and not of impersonal natural forces.
It's just kind of interesting. He has presence. Okay, so he has Jordan, and that gives him presence. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm going to look it up really quickly because it's killing me. And there's no... this would be a big... A country is under your control if you have influence equal to or higher than its stability value. Control. This seems to be the only place where the rules for scoring presence and dominance are, except for the example. I wish I could go back in the tutorial and review. I'm sure it's somewhere, right? Like, what the presence is. It's weird that when I play it, it says that presence is Jordan, but I have domination because of Syria and Lebanon, which makes sense. I understand, like, I have Syria and Lebanon controlled, and that's more than, but I don't understand why Jordan gives him presence exactly. I mean, I could play the Suez Crisis, but unfortunately, that removes influence. He could remove it from Israel and basically take away my control. But he can only remove 4. It's strange that Lebanon and Syria don't count as... It is very intimidating. Well, unfortunately, this is one of the downsides of this adaptation. Is it's very hard to see a reminder of what the rules are. Let's see. I can see a turn summary, but nothing about the tutorial summary. There is an introduction. Let's see, cards. So I see they've got the basic rules, but I'm not sure how to go beyond that and look at other rules. Well, okay, what happens if I do the next space race? Maybe play 2 per turn. Well, maybe I'll just kind of delay a little bit longer. I'll do this as a space race event. Success! So I get to play 2 space race cards per turn. I'm worried that I'm going to possibly lose my advantage. Okay, so it looks like he doesn't... 2 rounds remaining. I've got to play my scorecard. I've only got 2 opportunities to play it. So this doesn't seem as bad because... But the problem is... So if I play this for influence, I'm not going to be able to do anything significant. I guess I might as well play it. It's only going to give me 3 victory points. Because I don't think I can do anything else that's going to really... Presence. Both sides score presence. It would be one thing if he had more non-battleground states than I do, but... God, I just wish I could remember what presence was. Okay. Let's see. Look up one more time and see if I can find it. Ah, presence. A superpower has presence. In a region if it controls at least one country in that region. A superpower has presence in the region if it controls at least one country in that region. That's really strange. How do I not have presence? Because I control Lebanon, Syria, Israel. Because that's what I thought, is that as long as you have... I guess what I'm not understanding in this scoring is why I don't have presence. It seems silly, but I'll go ahead and score it, I guess. So he's adding influence. See, he's kind of already moving on. He must either have a scorecard or something. He's moving on to another area. So we know Asia's left. So I should try to work on Asia. He's kind of got a little bit of Central or South America and Central America, but Asia seems to be an area that has a little bit of... What's this event? Okay, let's see if we can get rid of a asterisk card. No, in West Germany. I mean, I'm not really too worried about that. Captured Nazi scientist. Yeah, let's go ahead and play the event. Auto success. Automatically go up to get some victory points for that. All right. So no victory points lost because we're over the DEF CON for sure. I don't know why I have 2 yellow.
Move out of the dark chamber of horrors.
Early war, 8 cards, 6 action rounds.
Find a way by which the minds of men, the hopes of men, the souls of men everywhere can move forward toward peace.
DEF CON's gone back up to 2. Reshuffle. Europe scoring again. Okay, so what would happen if I scored Europe right now? I'd get 6 victory points. It's still saying I don't have presence. I'd get 6 victory points. That's crazy. Take me up to 15. Then I could do some big time space race. Let's do it. Let's go big before we go home. Alright, so we did a big scoring right off the bat. What? $14. He might have interrupted me somehow. I don't know what he did. I'm not sure what was going on. So we can definitely... Okay, player earns 2 victory points. Okay. Don't hardly have time to read those cards. Let's see. Pan-Arab coalition invades Israel. So let's do the space race, man. Give us a 2.
The challenge of the 20th century.
I'm still... Oh, okay. I'm on Man in Space.
And not of impersonal natural forces.
Success. Opponent has to choose and show the headline card first. That's kind of cool. Oh, that was that first round. We both played a headline card. Why did I don't know. Because I could have played something and given myself... The U.S. may then conduct an operations as if they played one op card. Man. Okay. Okay. Let's do... Hey, I thought I got 2 space race cards. I just don't know what else is going to get scored. I know I need to take care of countries, but I just want to... Play this card simultaneously with a card containing your opponent's associated event. The event is canceled, but you may use the operations value. Oh, okay. Cancel card returns to the discard pile. So we'll do that with the Arab-Israeli war. So he has 2 Asian countries controlled. Not sure what he's going to do this round. I'm hoping that he doesn't have an Asia or South America scoring card, but somebody has to. Or he might have another Middle East military coup. Oof. Play. Oh. Well, let's host the Olympics. Oh, wait, let's go back and see if I can play a... Why can't I play a space race? It's very weird. Oh, so I was going to give myself a victory point. He had to decide if he was going to participate. I guess he chose not to.
Our efforts are made in the belief
Well, now, why is the USSR
nations can cooperate, and that there are no international problems which men of goodwill
one?
cannot.
All right, well, that was interesting. So I guess they chose to boycott the Olympics, which started World War III. Very odd move on the part of the Russia player. Very cool game. I really like the idea. I hate that I would have to kind of still read the rules or watch tutorials on how to play it, but I definitely am, and I, for some reason, it seems like there's something weird about that present scoring. But I did get really lucky and get another European scoring card, which was awesome. That I got that because then I could score twice for having such power in Europe. Um, really cool game. Wish the tutorial was a little bit longer, and I wish that there was a easy rules reference somewhere. And then it also seemed like there were some weird glitches as far as scoring that didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But really cool card. And then of course I keep forgetting at the beginning of every turn there's that headline card where everybody plays an event as a headline. So really interesting, really cool. Um, Definitely recommend it. As far as it's kind of an expensive game. I think it's like $20 or something like that. But there's always sales, and then sometimes Asmodee will have a huge sale on a lot of their board games. That's only $10, but they do have bundles that are on sale all the time, and so you can definitely. Um, oh, and there's even DLC. Add turn zero and promo cards, so it's kind of cool. Um, oh, apparently I own this already, even though. Okay, it says I already own it, even though it lets me purchase it, but usually it blocks that for me to be able to do that. Um, but I do. It is. They do have those on sale all the time, so it's pretty easy to grab them, and a lot of fun to check them out, especially when they're on sale. And of course, you can play online, which is really cool if you have friends that like to play it. Um, so it's pretty neat all around. Pretty neat game, and it definitely kind of has some historical value. You can see obviously the historical facts, the events that happen, and then they go into the influence of the game in certain areas. But it's pretty cool. You got to kind of keep track of all areas at the same time, otherwise somebody could pull a scoring card out, and you could be at a severe disadvantage in that area. So you got to kind of cover all areas, but then also work toward whatever scoring cards you have in your hand. So really neat idea. I am going to try to get uh, Gloomhaven back off the ground as soon as I can and finish playing those to get to the second boss so that I can open up 4 players. But we'll see. We'll see how fast that happens. I should have some time to do that this weekend. But otherwise, I'll be back here on Saturday with the rest of the table flipping crew. We're actually getting ready to finish up our climactic finale of Journeys in Middle Earth, and so it's really exciting. We're finishing that up. So be sure and join us. And if not, because you don't want to get it spoiled, then join us after that. We'll be playing some one-offs and checking out things like Marvel Champions and some other one-off games as we try to figure out what we're going to do for our next campaign. So until then, everyone have a great week, and I'll see you back next Tuesday. I should be on at the normal time of the week. It was just a little weird, but if I don't stream Tuesday, I usually try to stream Thursday. So either way, I'll see you all back next week. Bye.